Good afternoon, folks. We're glad to have you here with us for this conference on UltraHD TV. My name is Jeff Kelly. I'll be moderating a few of the sessions here. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of speakers. We've got a pretty full program here, so we're not going to spend a lot of time doing introductions. You have speaker bios and information about the various presenters in the handout that we have for you. So take advantage of that to get the background of the companies who have sponsored and helped us put this event together. I would like to start with just a quick QA. I know many of you in the audience here, but of this topic, UltraHD TV, how many folks here feel like you know something about this already coming in to get a little bit of an update? How many are pretty much new to the topic and hoping to find out what this thing is? Mostly an educated audience, okay, expect that here. How many of you did get a chance to get downstairs, see the number of exhibits and demos that are UltraHD, or have seen any of that other region? Fairly good reply. How many of you have seen in retail stores already? Yeah, now real catcher, how many plan to buy one in this first iteration of the technology? We have a couple of no's, not yet. How many actually already on one? Joe, of course, early adopter in the crowd. This is going to be an interesting technology to see unfold, and I think a lot of the conversations here today and the presentations are people that are going to have some ideas and opinions about what to expect, what things are ready to go, devices in stores, things that may not yet be there but are anticipated. And hopefully through the day here today, we'll see a number of those. We wanted to start out the day with a few analysts who have been looking at this from a few different angles, and I've asked to start out the presentation representative from the CEA. John Dubrovec has been a senior analyst with the group and looking at UltraHD. One of the things that we have in the mix here is the naming of the technology, the UltraHD format, if you will. It's a piece that CEA is touting as a way to brand and market and present this technology. And that's going to give us a little perspective on that and see where the CEA and CE industry sees this technology unfolding into the marketplace. So start the show.
How's that sound? Perfect. It is great to be here with you today. It's great to talk about UltraHD. As Jeff mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, and it's easy to cover the history of UltraHD because it's still relatively short. And then I'll dive into where we see the market going from here. So October 18th, 2012, after long discussions in a variety of working groups within CEA, CEA announced that the working groups had come together and decided on the term UltraHD as the definition for this new display technology. Here are some of the guidelines. I'm not going to go through each one in great detail, but you can see there are a variety of guidelines with respect to using the term UltraHD regarding display resolution, aspect ratio, processing, and essentially what we were trying to do, what CEA was trying to do, and what CEA did with things like HDTV, when they coined similar terminology, was to bring the industry together on a common platform to avoid confusing the consumer. And so we're working steadily in that direction. We're glad to see the name of this conference titled UltraHD Conference. A few notes from CES. As Jeff mentioned, many of you have probably seen UltraHD displays. You either saw them here or you've seen them at other events. Certainly you're going to want to put CES on your calendar for next January if it isn't already, because there will be a slew of additional announcements around UltraHD there. Here were some of the announcements from this past CES. I would argue that beyond just UltraHD, we saw a broad push to higher pixel density screen. We saw it happening in the mobile phone space, we saw it happening in the tablet space, we saw it happening in the Ultra HD space. So while we often talk about Ultra HD in isolation as a TV technology, in fact, there is a much broader trend going on that's driving up the pixel density of screens. At CES, we had about 52 different models launched from 15 different OEMs, and I'll show you now a quick view of what that breakout looks like. I should mention too, CEA has recently hired Mike Bergman. He's a colleague of mine. He's here in the room. He's done extensive work on Ultra HD, and much of his work comes from the groundwork that he has laid. So he has quickly become an expert in the space and somebody you should all connect with if you want to know where Ultra HD is headed. When we first started looking at Ultra HD and we were talking about it in 2012, we really viewed it as a large screen technology, and arguably when we talk large, we were meaning over 84 inches. What we saw come out of CES is that the manufacturers were committed to delivering that Ultra HD experience on a variety of screen sizes. You can see that mix here. And here's a look at the product timeline. Of course, we've got some models that shipped late last year, some that were shipping in the first half of this year, a variety more shipping in the second half, and some that have yet to announce their ship dates. Arguably, those will show up in the second half of the year or beginning of 2014. So this is a real technology. You can go out and buy it today. It's available for consumers. And so we're at a really interesting point in the evolution of Ultra HD in that you can go out and take advantage of it today. Just some of the announcements that we saw coming out of CES and beyond CES, of course, is the slew of products coming in and around a broader ecosystem. You had camcorders, you had cameras, of course, Red, Sony, and others were actively pursuing that space. You had media servers. You can see Qualcomm at CES announced their new Snapdragon 800 series processors would support Ultra HD resolution in captured play-by-play display. So you're seeing, again, not just a TV technology, but a broad industry-level technology starting to unfold. It's impacting not just large screen TVs, but the broader experience of consumer electronics. Taking a look at the current state of Ultra HD content and distribution, and that's one thing I'm sure we'll jump into the debate, and there'll be more things to talk about. It's still a very early technology, so there's still a lot to come. One thing I would note too is on this slide, we're talking about more than just simply resolution. You've got an increase in color, so you end up with an increase in video size. So as you all know, we're dealing with very large size video files. And I was talking to somebody who was testing, I think, a 30-second, maybe 20 or 30-second Ultra HD clip, and it was something like 10 gigabytes. So we're talking about very large video sizes here, and that's one of the hurdles that the content community and the hardware community is working to overcome. So while it's a real technology, it's available today, we're still very early in that life cycle. And there's a variety of trials underway. In Europe, they've started to look at Ultra HD broadcasts. Korea, Japan is looking at next month doing some Ultra HD broadcast experiments. So there's a variety of things, and I'm sure as of this morning, this slide is already out of date. There's more announcements being made on a daily basis. So now, just in the last few moments, let's dive into where we see the market evolving, where we see the market growing from here. When you look at the TV technology and the TV market, it is quickly moving to a large screen environment. In 2011, about 11% of TVs sold were over 50 inches, and that is growing rapidly. Our projection was that by 2016 it would be about 1 in 3, but that is materializing much quicker than we had originally projected. So you can see last year it was about 22% of TVs. This year, year to date, we're at 29% of TVs that are over 50 inches. So we're arguably almost at a third of all TVs selling year to date were over 50 inches. And that's where much of the growth is. And so the Ultra HD story, with respect to TVs, fits into an important aspect of the TV market. We're at a point where the TV market is moving towards those larger screens, and we're also at a point where we're starting to upgrade some of those original Ultra HD, some of those original HD sets. The average household has about 3 televisions, and they last about 9 years. And so every household is buying a new television about every 3 years. We went through a large upgrade cycle, 2005, 2006, 2007, as people transitioned from analog TVs to HD TVs. So we're now starting to hit the point where those original TVs are 6, 7 years old. In the next 2 to 3 years, consumers will be looking to replace that original large upgrade cycle that took place during that period. So that's the timing of all of these things is coming together quite nicely. Average screen size growing, as I already highlighted. This just gives you a little example. 1997, the average screen size we sold was 22 inches. We have come a long way in a relatively short period of time. So here's our current projections for Ultra HD sets in the U.S. market. You can see this year we're predicting about 23,000 units, and that could grow if these televisions hit the market sooner than expected, if, of course, market adoption and market traction is more rapid than we had predicted. The fact that we're seeing it in what I would call smaller screen sizes, though it's a bit awkward to call 70-inch screens smaller, but anything below 84 inches should help the volume. And then certainly there are some other dynamics in the marketplace as well. Turning that into percentage of the TV market, you can see right now our predictions are by 2016 it'll represent about 5% of the market. So it is growing rapidly. We hit over 1 million units by 2016 here in the US. But again, it's still an early technology. All technology diffusion follows S-shaped adoption curves, these power law curves that suggest things start off slow in the early years and then ramp up quickly. So we're still very much in the early years for this technology. And then here's just a few of those things I've talked about with regard to factors influencing the adoption. How much traction will manufacturers and retailers see in Ultra HD sets below 80 inches? When will some of these sets become available? We've already seen some on the marketplace, and that will help with consumers. What influence will some of the value propositions that manufacturers are working towards have on this marketplace? Westinghouse, Safety, and others are promoting a value play in that Ultra HD space. And then ultimately, the timing and depth of the broader development of the ecosystem. Not just hardware, but also, of course, content. In closing, here's a look at consumer appetite for Ultra HD. And so this is taken from Google search volume for the term 4K. This is on a worldwide basis. You can see those spikes there around CES, but then you have another big spike following that as we started to have these models launch. Consumers are going to the web, they're searching for it, and so that's a very positive sign. This isn't just an industry story that's unfolding, it's also a consumer story that consumers are starting to gravitate to. You can see search volume has increased significantly among consumers. So with that, I'll go ahead now and turn it to the next speaker, and then we can dive into any questions you may have during the panel discussion.
All right, thanks guys. Hi, my name is Paul Gagnon. I'm the Director of Global TV Research for Display Search. And for my presentation today, it's going to be a little bit different. What we're going to do is take a look at the kind of supply chain point of view. A lot of our research comes from the supply chain, so just as a primer for anybody who's not familiar with Display Search, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of the MPD Group, and our main focus is covering the generation of these products, the production of these products, all the way from the materials like the glass and liquid crystal, all the way through a finished set that's shipped into the retail channel. So I'm going to talk about the Ultra HD or 4K market from the point of view of the supply chain. I wanted to give a little bit of an update or a primer, or kind of set some context for the 4K market, or Ultra HD market. We refer to it as 4K. We tend to look at what the supply chain calls it. They use 4K a lot. If we look at global TV shipments as kind of the foundation for why 4K is coming, something interesting is happening. We've seen a lot of growth in recent years, but very recently, the last couple of years, global growth in TV shipments has fallen off a little bit. In fact, in 2012, global TV shipments fell about 6%, even in a technology like LCD TV, which is still pretty new, declined about 1% last year. Our expectation for the market is that it will be flat this year, maybe even slightly down year over year, but that there is growth coming. Our forecast shows a rebound in a few years. A lot of it relates to something that Sean mentioned about replacement cycles. We see a lot of these emerging markets generating a lot of growth, but even in developed markets like this one right here in North America, we're expecting that replacement cycle to yield some growth. If we do look at the trend over the last couple of years, the developed regions, and by that, we break out the world into 8 different markets, and the developed regions include Japan, North America, and Western Europe, kind of those countries that underwent the flat panel TV transition first. There was a bit of a bubble back in 2010. Global shipments for those 3 regions have fallen for a few years, but we think they're near stabilizing. The big drivers of growth in those regions were digital broadcasts, the transition to flat panel TV, adoption of larger sizes, and in some cases, subsidy programs like we saw in Japan. In the emerging market, you can see that the emerging region is a much larger potential market, and that includes countries like Latin America, Asia Pacific, China, Eastern Europe. It's a very big part of the TV market, actually generating a lot of growth right now. So when we think about technologies like Ultra HD, it's not just in the context of what we see here in the North America market, but around the world as well. And the drivers of growth in those regions are very similar. People adopting flat panel TVs, looking at a lot of growth related to price compression, and even some subsidy program-driven growth in markets like China as well. So if we look at the North America TV market, and our definition of the North America TV market is the US and Canada, and these are shipments from the manufacturers to any retail distribution in this market. We saw that there was a good period of growth, especially from about 2004 through 2009, 2010, as that transition from CRT to flat panel technologies really ramped up. Since then, though, we've kind of plateaued. 2010 was the peak year. We've seen shipments in the North America market kind of translate sideways for a few years. We think they'll be down slightly this year. But long term, and especially looking out beyond 2014, we are expecting a little bit of growth. And what's very encouraging is this growth is, as Sean mentioned, directly into these larger screen sizes. We keep revising our outlook upward for very large screen sizes, especially 50 inches and up. 4K or Ultra HD is well suited to those screen sizes. When it comes to features, and I'm going to take a quick review of some other new innovations that have come to the TV market over the last few years, how they're doing here, how they're doing in other parts of the world, there might be a clue for what we can expect from the Ultra HD market. So in terms of 3D, that was a technology that launched back in 2010. The adoption worldwide has gone pretty well, but we've seen kind of slow adoption here in the North American market. LED as well, the transition from CCFL to LED backlights has progressed quite rapidly in other parts of the world. It's finally starting to catch on, but again, North America has kind of been a laggard in terms of adoption of those technologies. And then finally, if we look at connected or smart TV, adoption and growth has been better in other parts of the world than it has been here in the North America market. So that leads to the question is 4K or is Ultra HD going to suffer a similar fate, or is there some better value proposition and what might drive that? One of the things that we look at when we're looking at the supply chain and kind of the market potential of any new technology is to not consider it in a vacuum. We always look at it in terms of expected price points for these products and what kinds of volume can be achieved in those price points. This is a distribution of unit shipments in the North American market by pricing. And we have lots of great data on pricing from our parent company, NVD. And when we look at the volume of products or unit shipments of TVs in the these various price points. One thing stands out is that if we look at this premium tier market, the 4K market, most of these sets are going to be priced above $1,500, and that part of the market is still pretty small. Even looking at the $2,000 and up segment, only a little over 1% of all unit shipments in Q1 were over $2,000, and that's exactly where a lot of these products are launching. So the question becomes, can those products migrate down into price points that generate more volume? If we look at the supply chain and what sizes, this is very similar to the chart that Sean showed, but what we've done here is on a global basis, this isn't just for North America, we've plotted what sizes, what brands, and looking at the supply chain, who the panel makers are going to be that are going to supply those products. One thing stands out, there are a lot of different sizes, there are a lot of different companies expected to introduce 4K sets, and that there is a big focus on China, and that's something that can't be ignored. When we think about the pricing of these products, one of the biggest determinants of the pricing of a finished set is the panel, the LCD panel itself. And in a commodity product like a 32-inch LCD TV, that panel can represent as much as 50 or 60% of the finished price of the product. So if we look at the prices that are being marketed for LCD panels at 4K resolution, how might that influence the retail price points for these products? And one of the things that's really been interesting is that the compression of the price premium for 4K panels has really been falling quickly. In fact, in this case, you can see that in many cases, by the end of the year, we're expecting that the panel price for a 4K or an UltraHD panel to be as low as 20 or 30% on top of a similarly spec full HD panel. That's the background. This is why you're seeing a lot of disparity in terms of the prices of these products, is because that core component, the LCD panel, is getting quite cheap. So it's possible for several set makers, or some set makers, to introduce products that use that 50-60% markup rule to introduce very low priced products. We did a quick sampling of a market that has kind of seen the earliest rollout of UltraHD products, and taking a sample of what the current prices are for those products, and that's China. China is one of those markets where 4K or UltraHD is really gaining a lot of traction. Consumers are demanding it, and the brands are offering a lot of products. And you can see a gigantic disparity in prices between kind of the entry level and the top tier of the market. And this is the China market. This doesn't mean that this is exactly how it's going to shake out in the North America market, but it's relatively easy for a lot of these brands, a lot of these especially Chinese brands, to bring those products here to the US and sell them for similar price points. Questions about quality, picture performance, those are subjective things, and consumers aren't always subjective and careful when they analyze the product. It's very possible that somebody could go out and see, well, this one says 4K, this one says 4K. They're $3,000 different in price. Is that bumper picture quality worth it? That's going to be the market reality, especially in the second half of this year. So when we put together our forecasts, we take into account that these price points are going to become available to the consumer soon, and it depends on how retailers and brands market them as to how the messaging shakes out. If we look at the production, there's a big difference between the production of an LCD panel and the production of a finished set. And a lot of times, in our research, we survey the panel makers and ask them, how many are you planning to produce at each of these various screen sizes, and when do you plan to ship them? And if we total those up, you can see a massive increase in the production of 4K panels. And in particular, a lot of the Chinese and Taiwanese panel makers are driving this trend because they see this ripe market of consumers in China. But because they're driving up the production so rapidly, this is what's driving the prices down for these panels. And those prices and those panel prices will be available to any TV manufacturer very soon. In fact, for 2013, the production target for the sum of the LCD panel makers in the industry is close to 3 million units worldwide. You'll see in a second, our forecast for finished sets is much lower than that because we're taking into account these price volume ratios. So speaking of our forecasts, we have two forecasts here: the worldwide global demand or global shipments of 4K sets that we're expecting, and then also here, the North America market, US combined. Again, these are shipments of products to retail. Worldwide, we're expecting just under 1 million units shipped. That figure could go higher relatively easily if the China market turns on. We're forecasting about 600,000 units to be shipped to China. But if the Chinese set makers continue to compress the prices for those products, we can expect the volume to rise as a result. Here in the North America market, we're expecting a little over 100,000 units, and a lot of that depends on the timing, as Sean said, of those second half shipments of products from brands who haven't yet announced dates. We're expecting that some of those brands are going to ship in time for the holidays, and they may be optimistic about the levels of demand they can generate with their price points. So our forecast is for a little over 100,000 units, and that market ramps up very quickly by 2016 to over 2.5 million units. It's still a fraction of the market, a fraction of the 40 million unit market here in the North America market, but that is still impressive growth, and actually is a little bit more conservative than the growth for some other technologies like LED, based on the fact that those price points are quite high, and we're still waiting for the content portion of the value chain to be determined. Another way to look at it is, what does it represent of the big screen market? Again, 4K is a technology we expect in big screens. Even though we've seen products announced this week at smaller screen sizes, we still see the main benefit of 4K shaking out in the large screen size market. And considering all the different technologies available, we think that the 4K part of the market can occupy about a quarter to 20% to a quarter of the overall unit shipments in the North America market. One of the things to keep an eye on is what happens with OLED TV. And if you think about it, those two products, 4K LCD TVs and OLED TVs, will be targeting the same premium consumer. We think that based on price points and the later introduction of OLED, that 4K LCD TV will dominate. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we could see 4K resolution or UltraHD resolution OLED TV, but we think that's probably beyond this forecast window. That's it. Thank you very much, and I'll take any questions later.
Hello everybody, I'm Jack Weatherall from Future Source Consulting. And I hope to have some slides soon. For those of you who are not aware of Future Source Consulting, we are a market analyst. We research the market for hardware, for content, and also the delivery system for that content. So in terms of the hardware or the equipment, we're looking at TV displays, home theatre systems, set-top boxes, all kinds of home entertainment equipment, also broadcast hardware, which of course is very relevant to the topic of UltraHD. In terms of content, well, we work with movie studios, so we're familiar with obviously film, music, television, games, new digital content, which includes even e-books. The delivery system, well, of course, we're talking here about the old discs and tape, but we're moving through broadcast, video on demand, also now internet broadband, the cloud, etc. So we forecast the markets both at a local country level, and this moves up through regional and indeed global as well. So that's Future Source Consulting. My brief is to give you a little bit more insight into the content side of the deal. We're obviously, we have our forecast as well for UltraHD TV sets, which I now discover aren't too far out of line actually with my previous two colleagues who have been speaking. But where are we from the HD story in the past? There are many pieces of the jigsaw, if you like, that need to fall into place in order to ensure that UltraHD is being consumed at a mass level in the home. We need to have content, naturally. We need a means of delivering that content to the TV set. We need TV sets that people can actually afford. We have one person in the room who currently has a 4K TV set. The question is how much will it boil down to affordable prices for everybody in this room. And then of course we need consumer acceptance. The TVs may be reasonably cheap in the future, who's to say, but also people need to desire them. They need to have some reason to actually feel that they need to replace their current TV set with an Ultra HD TV set. Okay, let's just move through some of the content issues. Firstly, the actual cinema chain. So how's it working? Are the Hollywood studios making films in 4K, and is it reaching consumers at cinema? Well, firstly, there's a lot of Hollywood activity capturing content in 4K. Many films that are actually done in this way, but when it comes to the reaching the cinema, most movies, in fact probably only about 80 have actually been displayed in 4K at the cinema. The reason for this, as much as anything, is to do with the installed base of 4K projectors. They're pretty expensive pieces of equipment, as you can imagine. The cinemas have spent a lot of money upgrading to 3D. They need to see some payback from that, or many of them are willing to or can even afford to upgrade to 4K. But this is a growing area in itself. What we should bear in mind is that many movies are being scanned, so a growing back catalogue of movies. Sony are interested in doing this. So, in short, if we're talking about the movie experience, it is happening. Content is indeed in the pipeline. On the broadcast side, well, they're certainly showing interest, and the broadcast equipment is being produced, and some of the companies are of course buying it and using it. Broadcast, though, it does have a danger of what we might call upgrade fatigue. They've moved to digital, they've moved to high definition, they moved to 3D in many cases. That's a lot of investment, and now they're scratching their heads going, okay, 4K, is this for us? Is this something we should be getting involved in? Is it something we can afford to get involved in? There are a few issues at this level, some technical issues which they still need to resolve. Standard interfaces amongst the industry for transferring the content, motion blur. I mean, a lot of the activity is obviously about sport. This is an area where there's appreciation, as we saw with 3D, that sport could be a big driver of interest for the consumer. But at the moment, there's a few issues over motion blur. In other words, the speed of the action is quite challenging for those who are trying to capture the content. And indeed, the camera technology itself, the sensors in the cameras, because of the frame rate, they need to develop high sensitivity in order that they can pick up enough light. And then finally, bandwidth, which is arguably the biggest problem that they have. These are meaty files that are being transferred, as I think Sean mentioned earlier on. It's a big issue for them, how they actually manage these files. That said, these technical issues are all being overcome, and should be overcome by the time most of the broadcasters actually wish to get involved in UltraHD. Another of the major factors in all of this is compression. How can the broadcasters and anybody who wishes to deliver 4K content to their home, how can they get it there? Because it is such a consumer of bandwidth. Now the good news is that HEC, the compression technology that's been worked upon, standardized, is being tested and rolled out. So, and the silicon should be widely available by the end of the year. So the compression issue is one which is being nicely resolved. However, how is this content going to get to the home? What can we learn from the past about those who supply content, and how will it pan out in the future? Well, pay TV providers, of course, we've seen with HD and also with 3D, been in the vanguard of that kind of delivery. We've got 64 million or so HD households, those who take HD services from their pay TV operator in North America. And the pay TV companies like DirecTV, Comcast, etc. here in the US and elsewhere in the world. We've got Sky in the UK where I'm based, also Sky in Germany, Canal Plus in France. You know, these guys are at the cutting edge of pay TV and they're thinking, okay, we need to keep the leading edge on the opposition. What can we do? Is Ultra HD something that we can do in the same way as we've done HD, where they can charge a premium to their consumers in order to get a bit more cash, but also attract more consumers as well. They're looking at Ultra HD as a means of doing this. There are numerous tests on the go, as you're aware. You know, some of them are ensuring that content is captured. I think here basketball in Atlanta was recorded recently in Ultra HD. We've seen in Europe as well, tennis in France, the satellite and IPTV operator Orange. We're doing a test at Roland Garros, the French tennis tournament there. And in London at Wimbledon at the moment, the BBC is capturing this content. Loads of tests are going on around the world. The football, of course, in Brazil, and in next year it's looking like they will be shown the final. The World Cup will be shown in Japan in Ultra HD. So there are tests. You know, there's a lot of interest there, and the pay TV operators are looking very closely at this. That said, they spent a lot of money and are still upgrading their consumers from standard definition to high definition. Those who have invested in 3D and upgraded there have yet to recoup their costs. That they are, perhaps in some cases, a little bit scarred by the 3D experience. ESPN, notably, of course, withdrew their 3D service or announced the withdrawal of it recently. So there is a danger, again, of this phrase, format fatigue, the pay TV operators holding off a little while, maybe not jumping onto that the bandwagon too soon. Of course, this isn't the only way that the content can reach the home, to the mass market. Blu-ray, there are 52 million Blu-ray households in North America. That's with players and PS3 as well, of course. Now you will recall that Blu-ray was the first means by which many people could actually get high-definition content to their TV screen. They may not have had the broadcast signal, but they could buy a Blu-ray disc, and then there it was. Now, we think that there will be a repeat of history here, and the 4K or Ultra HD content, many people, their first experience of it on the TV set they bought at home will be through Blu-ray. We know that the vendors are obviously keen to push Blu-ray, which has been flagging slightly. So the Sonys, Samsungs, LGs, etc. Guess what? The same people who are trying to sell you the Ultra HD TV sets will be pushing the Blu-ray players, and they'll be hoping now to charge a little bit of a margin on Ultra HD Blu-ray players. The Blu-ray Disc Association is working on specifications, and the next set of specs should include Ultra HD, and future source could imagine that would be complete within the year. They move very quickly on 3D, and I think the Blu-ray community will see this as a great way to press home Blu-ray's advantage. There is the possibility of consumer confusion here. So there's Blu-ray discs, there's 3D Blu-ray discs, and then potentially Ultra HD Blu-ray discs. So that would have to be carefully managed. Perhaps a bigger issue though for Blu-ray is the other competition, which is online operators such as Netflix here in the US, Amazon owned Love Film in Europe. You know, these guys are looking very closely and getting a competitive advantage here in the same way as they've managed to achieve margins by charging one flat rate for SD and then a slightly higher one for HD content. Well, why not move in on Ultra HD? And of course, as you know, Netflix, their TV, very successful TV program, House of Cards, that was captured in 4K. they've got some content already that they could be delivering. HEVC, as I said, is falling into place. They could be some of the first people to offer 4K services. There are one or two issues, undoubtedly. Bandwidth, okay, there is compression, but from my understanding of what happened on Christmas Day here in the US, the broadband infrastructure was groaning under the weight of demand for standard and high definition content. So how will they be able to handle 4K demand? Well, it'd be nice to have that problem, but there was so much demand for 4K content that broadband infrastructure was struggling, you could argue. One of the key points here is that Futuresource believes this is obviously something for large screen enjoyment. So you can enjoy online content on your laptop. The trick is to actually get it to the TV screen. Well, content is on the way, but it will take a while for it to become broad and deep and plenty of it. But you could argue that consumers might actually buy into UltraHD even though content is lacking. Firstly, all of the manufacturers of UltraHD TV sets are talking about upscaling. Well, most of them are talking about the upscaling capabilities of their TV sets to fill in the gap whilst the content isn't available. Now, it's worth just reflecting on history here. We've got two people in this picture who are struggling to work out quite what they're looking at. Is it SD, is it HD, or is it a mirror? Well, if we look at the uptake curve of high definition here in the US, high definition has been around for a decade or more, and indeed 79% of homes have a high definition TV set. But how many of them are actually receiving an HD signal on that TV set? Well, on their pay TV operator, it's around 49% of households. So there's a big gap there, isn't there? Still, there's about 30% of households with an HD TV set. They've not actually got HD content. They may not even realise this. I'm sure many haven't. But it's worth just reflecting on that point. Now, Futuresource obviously is a forecast this market as well, and we believe that the uptake of UltraHD will be much slower than HD. Not saying it's not going to happen, definitely will happen, but it's going to be a slower burn. Now, why do we think this? Well, brands will try to retain their price premium. We are seeing some quite interesting price points already, but we do know that who's actually making money out of manufacturing TV sets right now? Not a lot of companies there are struggling, so brands such as Samsung will be trying to keep the margins as high as they can. We believe that the market will be restricted to 40 inches plus, or actually 39 inches plus. We think that there will be a slightly slower rollout of native 4K content. And also HD uptake. We have to be honest, don't we? It was also about form factor, moving from CRT to flat panel. That was a major reason that people upgraded their TV sets. And of course, UltraHD doesn't have that capability, that advantage. So there we go. The piece of the jigsaw will fall into place over time. Some bits will fall into place faster than others. The key point will be pricing, perhaps most arguably. If that comes down more rapidly, then uptake could be swifter. Futuresource, we've been reviewing the market over the last decade for HD, and we're looking forward to seeing how it pans out, how the story does pan out. But the future is definitely UltraHD. Thanks very much for your time.